Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. You might hear that it's raining outside. It was thundering earlier, so I've kind of left this video late for today. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to I'll probably put it out. I won't put it out tonight. It's too late for it to come out tonight. It'll probably come out tomorrow or Sunday or something. And so, well, let's, for starters, let me point out what I've got on display here. So, this is Heroes of the Silk Road, Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road, I should say. And here's 101 Sarmatian. And both these books are very similar in that they are both NPC books, basically, like the bulk part of it. In Heroes and Villains' case, it is just about every famous person that existed in the Silk Road from 1190 to 1220. And in the case of 101 Sarmatians, it is a group of different Polish aristocratic families. But to say that they're just NPC books is too small, even though that is a big part of it, right? You can pick an NPC out of them and use them in your game. But they're connected to places, right? And to situations and things that are happening. So it's an event generator, it's a location generator. 101 Sarmatians adds more detail to the locations where these noble families are based, right? And what they're doing. There's also a lot of, there's random tables for interesting things that happen in 101 Sarmatians. In Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road, you have a new character class, the Assassin, if you really insisted on it, because you want it to be one. And you have also some stuff on Song Dynasty wondrous items. In 101 Sarmatians, you have the rules for how to venerate Christian saints for intercession, and the mechanics of that, and the specific Polish saints that were popular at the time. But neither of these two, I will admit, have been really blown out of the water successes. They've been successes. They both achieved bestseller status, but obviously not nearly as great as either Sword and Caravan or as Baptism of Fire, which are the main books they spawned through. Now, on the other hand, the old school companion in the middle there, it's got the stuff that everybody wants. So, it's got a bunch of new character classes, well, a few new character classes anyways, a whole ton of new magic systems of all different kinds. It's got stuff on the outer planes. It's got stuff on, encounter tables, and there's stuff for higher level play in the game of Lion and Dragon. And everybody loves that. Everybody loves a splat book, basically. Right? Now, don't get me wrong. The old school companion is awesome, right? The magic is all historically based. And did something go wrong there? Did I just black out? I'm sorry, I got a brand new phone now, but it for some reason suddenly went dark on me for a second as I was recording. But okay, we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. It's actually the same type of phone that I had before, but it's an advanced. It's the newer model, and it's got an incredibly good camera. Though I guess you don't notice that much based on what I'm doing. I'll be curious to see how good the microphone is. I'm sure it'll be better than the last one, but I don't know if it'll be like super better or barely noticeable. Anyway, as I was saying, people always like stuff like that, and of course the character classes in Old School Companion 1 are good. The critical tables are expanded. The magic system is good. They're all good, right? And of course, Old School Companion has become a big hit. But I would say I probably should stop trying to make NPC books like Heroes and Villains and 101 Sarmatians, because in comparison, if I'd just done more splat book stuff, then it probably would have sold more. But I think that they were a really good value, especially if you're a DM. Especially if you're a DM and you're having you've got sandbox type play, because your characters go to some region at a certain given time, and you can look and see what's going on there in that region at that time. What NPCs are there? What are their agendas? What do they want? Right? It's not a random generator, but it's another kind of generator of adventure for your sandbox style play. Anyway, I've talked far too long on this subject, and now I'm going to get to my main subject. So I was going to do a video discussing why the OSR in general, in terms of its design movement, has favored BX more than AD&D. And I won't lie to you, I'll admit that one of the reasons I wanted to do this because it would piss off the bros, the bro SR. But, they're not that big a group anymore, actually. And in any case, there was another topic that came out that I found more interesting, and one that will piss off a lot of the same people, right? Because these are the people that want to imagine that there's that they themselves, unlike those of us who've been playing for 30 years or more, they are now suddenly they've discovered this thing that was there right from the very beginning, and it changes everything. Oh, right, it's incredible, right? It's like you find out Richie Cunningham had an older brother, and then later he didn't, and nobody explained it, right? And that's the key of all happy days, right? It's that sort of thing, right? These people come up with these notions that suddenly they've cracked some kind of code of the perfect RPG D&D experience. So let me tell you, the perfect RPG D&D experience is the experience that has evolved along the game into what, that's part of the reason why BX is more successful than AD&D. It is closer to the kind of pure peak experience that a gamer playing D&D seems to be rooting for, okay? And that's all that you can say about it, right? And the stuff that they've said about some old mechanics or some old ideas, one time and stuff like that. That's all. That isn't stuff that was the secret key that was lost because everybody suddenly became stupid and decided not to use this thing. No, it's a thing that was tried and was ultimately discarded because it was detrimental to the experience. Okay. And now we've got another one because these guys are always trying to, they're competing with each other, and of course they're competing with everybody that they hate, that are people that are actually just into actual good game design instead of this kind of quasi-religious cult-like quest to seek out the lost key of role-playing, right? Now they've moved on from, some of the other stuff that they were doing, and now what they're saying is, no, it's chainmail. Because in the original box D&D, Gary Gygax said you had to use chainmail for combat. And so obviously what's the real secret is that D&D was always just chainmail all along. And the moment we forgot, somebody forgot, Gary Gygax must have forgotten, right? Because he kept writing the books, and somehow he said, he told Chainmail to go screw itself, right? It didn't matter. He designed a different combat system because it was not what it served for him. But you have these people that are just absolutely obsessed with these ideas, and they want that to make them like the Pope of the anti-OSR, right? Of the fundamentalist reactionaries, to be the one that is the most pure, right? And the most pure is you're just basically playing chainmail with a couple of twists at the end, right? So they've tried to make this big deal out of it for quite a while now, actually. But I guess it's heated up again. And the problem is you've got a couple of guys. You got a guy like me, who I'm a historian. I'm not a specialist on RPG historians, but RPG history is only 50 years long, right? So that means nothing to me, right? I could go back 2,000 years to study something. So for me, RPG history is a cakewalk, right? It's nothing. And so I've looked at it, right? And that means I have a very clear idea of what happened and why. But I'm still doing it as an academic. I wasn't physically there exactly, let's say. But we have two people who in a sense were, right? Well, one of them who literally was, Rob Kuntz, right? Rob Kuntz was basically Gary Gygax's foster son, right? He was not legally exactly, but practically that. He practically lived with the Gygaxes. He was there the entire time that D&D was being developed. He was a kid, but he was not a baby kid, right? He was capable of paying attention to what was going on. He was playing D&D, right? He was Robilar in the original Greyhawk campaign, right? So this is the last man standing, right? And then the other side, you have the fellowship, the fellowship of the thing I called it. You have the Secrets of Blackmoor guy who went and spoke to all of the remaining people of the original Blackmoor campaign, many of whom were also part of the group with Wesley and stuff like that in the Bronsteins, right? And so they've got like as clear a perspective as possible on almost all of this. And you have, right, Gary Gygax putting the chainmail rules, saying that the chainmail rules are the reference for combat in D&D in the earliest versions of D&D, right? But apparently, according to Rob Kuntz, Gary Gygax never used those rules. He never used chainmail in the D&D development process, let's say, in the playtesting. That was not what he wanted. He put it there for whatever reason. Well, I know I have a very good guess what the reason is. I'll get to that in a moment. He put that there, but he had always had the intention that D&D would not actually be tied forever to chainmail. And people who think that was meant to be the original goal and purpose until Gary Gygax, I don't know, was possessed by a demon and decided to ruin, paradise and to throw everyone out of the promised land, or whatever it is that you maniacs think, right? You bro SR rejects, right? Whatever it is you think, right? You're wrong. It was just, here's the thing. In the playtests, Gary Gygax was working out what would eventually become parts of, the parts that were successful in the playtest, would become the combat system in D&D, okay? And according to Rob Kuntz, he never once used chainmail in the playtest. Meanwhile, with Blackmoor, right, you had Dave Arneson and his crew, and they actually did use chainmail once or twice, apparently. And then they rejected it and started using another mechanic that I think is called Strategos, which was another set of like miniature combat rules. And then they didn't really care for that either, right? So they, along the way, Dave Arneson started creating his own combat system, which were like, there's according to these guys, to Secrets of Blackmoor and Rob Kuntz, there were like 18 pages of notes from Arneson detailing the combat system. It had a whole bunch of complicated equations and things like that. Gary wanted it simplified, And there's a letter that Dave writes to Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson. He says he calls the combat system the base 10 system, which probably implies that it was originally inverted. Like originally the rolls were negative, right? Something like that. But then it got turned back probably into like the chainmail armor ratings, right? The only reason we have descending AC in old school is because of chainmail, because that got stuck in. It was a little legacy segment. And descending AC is not better than ascending. It's not worse necessarily. It seems a little more counterintuitive because you think the more stuff I have on me, the bigger the number should be, right? But it's not a terrible thing, right? But that is part of the story. So Arneson, in an interview with the Space Gamer in 1979, he says that there was that the combat system for D&D that he created was primarily based on his rules, a rule system he made for playing ironclads at combat, like naval combat, like a ship-based minis game. Okay, and that is true. I know that I saw this independently in my own research, that the term hit points comes out of that game, right? That they were hit points, that were how much hits a one of these ironclads would be able to take. All right. Kuntz does not remember playing Chainmail once during the D&D playtest phase. And, you know, like we said, Arneson used them once and then removed them, okay? Because he just didn't, the values for the armor class were kept because the system was needed to convert, you know, to convert into something equivalent. And, you know, here Seekers of Blackmoor says, I find the chainmail revisionism a bit silly. It overlooks all the historical documentation. And he's absolutely right about that. And it is understandably hard to access for most gamers. And of greater concern for game historians, he's super right about this, is how chainmail revisionism creates a false narrative about the process whereby D&D was created. What I would add to that is not just does it creates a false narrative, but that it creates not just a false narrative about the process of the past, it creates a false narrative about the priorities in the present, right? Because then it becomes this thing, this retrograde, backwards, you know, these, like the guys that want to go back to you know, the golden age of jihad or something like that, right? Like this backwards mentality of thinking, where no, we must hold on to this thing, right? Chainmail is the key part, or one time is the key part, or, you know, Braunstein is the key part, and we will all worship that, and you will worship me for having discovered it, right? And now we will be creating the only pure D&D, right? That is that mentality. That is a sick mentality. It is a mentality of, you know, well, it's a grifter mentality, obviously, but it's a mentality that is a derangement of what you should be wanting. You know, like you should be looking to experiment with RPGs. This notion that no, we have to get to the one pure Ur D&D, and it's been happening since like 2007, right? This is not a new argument that I've been having with people. It's been happening all this time. It just used to be kind of harmless. It used to be a very dorky thing that dorky people did, of saying, oh, well, you know, what we have to do is find, I found this laundry list that Gary Gygax wrote in 1972, and so it's pre-D&D, which gives us some hints of what might have existed before D&D. It's that sort of stuff. To now, it's like, no, this proves, you know, chainmail was always the real D&D, and it means that, you know, we have to wipe out our enemies or something. Like it has this absolute death cult mentality going along with it, you know, the kind of thing that, you know, Aztec fans would go for, I guess. And, you know, it's very stupid. It's very stupid. And so it creates a false mentality of suggesting that we have to turn away from creating games that are innovative and fascinating, right? And of course, as Seekers of Blackmoor pointed out, it creates a completely false narrative of what playing, for those of you who were never there, what playing in the old school days was really like. I was there, right? Seekers of Blackmoor was there. Rob Kuntz was there, right? I mean, I wasn't there in I'm just checking it. Can you see this? I don't even know what's going on. It seems to keep locking the screen, but it keeps running. So I think it says tap the screen to restore. I'm so great with, yeah, you can tell I should have been a boomer, right? I'm not, I'm Gen X, but here I am not understanding what's going on with this phone as it keeps blanking out on me. I mean, I've got to find a way to stop it from doing that because it's driving me nuts. So, you know, like those of us who were there, we know what was actually valued and what was not because we were all playing it. We were playing it all the time, a lot of us. I certainly was, you know, from 11 until I was like 18. And you know, there was a time and place for everything, and the time and place for RPGs was like all high school and everything. And then the time and place for drugs and dangerous levels of promiscuity was college, right? So that kind of like slowed me down after a while. But the whole golden age, I was there, right? When I started, AD&D First Edition was the current year RPG product, right? And we all know how we played, okay? So you can't turn around, you Johnny-come-latelys, you ridiculous fanboys who have these visions that you're going to discover the one true way, can't turn around and tell us, oh no, you don't understand, you've done it totally wrong, right? Much less like, tap dancing guys who used to be huge fans of World of Darkness and only very recently got into D&D and then claimed to be like the only true avatar of the intentions of the sacred first edition AD&D, right? Then you could go screw yourselves, right? It's just ridiculous. So here's the question, like, so why would Gary Gygax have just put the chainmail rules there? Well, I'm a game designer. I was just at the beginning of this video talking about game design, right? And I can tell you something. I always try to do my very best to make the very best work possible so that my books are as useful as possible for my players. That said, and probably the people that actually play in my campaigns can tell you this, I don't follow all my own rules. Because part of that attempt to make everything as usable as possible is that there are certain expectations of things that need to be in an RPG. And so you have to provide them. You have to provide them in a certain way and maybe not in another way, right? For me, first of all, the idea that you would take my rules as some kind of sacred scripture and have to follow it precisely and to the letter, that's completely anathema to me, right? You can do whatever you want with the rules. You can change them any way you want if you're the DM. If you're the player, you have to do what the DM says, sit down, shut up, and play, right? But if you're the DM, you are the guy in charge. I, as the game designer, am not the guy in charge at your table. You are. And you can change whatever you want. Okay? Oh, here it went again. So this thing's going to drive me insane. I'm going to have to look at what the options are here. But, so, where was I? Yes. So you can make the game what you want it to be. That also means I provide my versions of things that I don't... There's things that every game master values very highly in a game and parts that he doesn't. And there's also stuff that he's working on at one point and he does something he doesn't have. Let's say you're trying to get out a product, you might do something and then put it out there and then that wasn't the best version of it, right? For example, the critical table in Lion and Dragon First Edition. Lots of people love it. I felt it was too limiting because it was a single table no matter what type of attack it was. And I wanted to do it different tables, a series of different tables that had different effects that were specific to the type of injury given, whether it was an arrow, a bolt, or whatever, right? But I did not have time to do that over in the Lion and Dragon book, right? So I did the simple one. I never ended up using the simple one. I ended up using the one that is in the advanced critical hit tables, right there, yeah. So, which I then put in Old School Companion 1, right? That's one example of many, right? And then there's others, like encumbrance, right? I make a set of encumbrance rules, partially borrowed from James Radji's books, right, from his encumbrance system. It's a very simple encumbrance system. And I think it's very similar to the one in Shadow Dark too, if I'm not mistaken, which means that probably Shadow Dark also got it from James Radji, probably not from me in this case, because I don't make a big deal out of it. Because in my game, that is still too complicated for me for an encumbrance system. Well, now, obviously, I don't want to be the DM that has characters that somehow are like walking around like as if they have as if they have a bag of holding or something. They're carrying along 17 goats and 12 sheep, and they have 7 suits of armor, and they've got all that in their backpack. No, you don't want to do that, right? But I also don't want any system that involves me having to count like weights to the milligram or something like that. So I made a simple-ish encumbrance system in Lion and Dragon, which is also in all my other games, that you can carry about like 20 things, modified by your strength score. Some objects, big objects, count as more than one thing, and very tiny objects don't count as a thing at all unless you have a large amount of them. And that's basically it, right? Like that's how it works out. But I don't use it ever in the game, right? So like, I mean, what I do is I make sure, well, okay, if there's somebody that's got like just a ridiculous amount of stuff, they're going to have to explain how they have it there, right? And if they don't, then they don't have it there. You know, that sort of thing. That's how it always worked for me. So that's number one. And number two, you might notice, right? I do videos. I've been doing videos for many years now. And in all my videos, I have like my products in front of me and I talk about them for a while. And I try to see if you could be interested in giving a look at them and buying them. Okay. And that's because, you know, you don't make a lot of money from YouTube. I don't mainly, my main income has nothing to do with YouTube. It has to do with my publishing of games, right? And so if you bought my Lion and Dragon book, great. You know, that is going to make me money. And if I can somehow convince you at the same time, hey, but look, you know, here's some Villains of the Silk Road, Sword and Caravan, all of those are connected to Lion and Dragon. The Old School Companion is an expansion to Lion and Dragon. You guys should check it out. You should buy it, right? Maybe you'll buy it, right? Now, there is another way to do this, is that you could have, you know, like in Dark Sun, in the second edition, or in the first edition, in second edition D&D Dark Sun setting, Lorraine Williams decided to oblige the creator of that setting to make everything have to use the Book of Psionics, because they were making the Book of Psionics, it wasn't selling, and they forced you to have the Book of Psionics to sell it. Gary Gygax had this Dungeons & Dragons game. He also had this battle system for miniature combat called Chainmail. So when he got to the part about combat, he said, hey, use Chainmail, because then you're going to have to buy it. Okay? That is another possibility. And before some of you like lie down collapsed on your fainting couches, you know, Gary Gygax was a nice man. Some people have been very cruel to him, very unkind in retrospect. But he wasn't an absolute saint, okay? And he was a businessman. He was a salesman. He liked doing those things, right? And so, of course, if he's already got Chainmail, he's going to try to create a tie-in to Chainmail so people buy both. But there was also the other combat system, you know, the alternative combat system. So the one that became Dungeons & Dragons' actual combat system. So that's it. It's not some huge mystery. It's not Gary Gygax that left a secret trick for like a single guy 50 years in the future to figure out the unknown secret true and only true version of playing D&D, right? Which is just bullshit for everybody, right? It is no point at all. All right. So that is what I wanted to say about this subject. I hope it pisses off all the right people. Credit to both Rob Kuntz and to Secrets of Blackmore, because you guys have done a good job, and I'm glad I caught the attention of this. So that's basically everything for today. I really hope there aren't a bunch of blacked out spots in this video. I don't know why it keeps doing this. This is the first time I've tried to record a video, but I hope it'll work out. If you like this video, please share it. Please hit the like button. Check out all my products. Check out 101 Sarmatians, Heroes and Villains, and Old School Companion 1, and Lion and Dragon, and Baptism of Fire, all of them. So I don't have to force you to buy them by tagging them into a book, right? And share this everywhere you think people find it interesting, or where you think all the right people will get pissed off about it, okay? Currently smoking. This is a Lorenzetti poker plus Argento roots.